Every year, India's budget isn't just presented as a bunch of numbers, it's a story. And this year, wow, the story is a grand one, packed with announcements that paint this incredible picture of a nation on the brink of a massive transformation. So let's take a closer look at that story. I mean, if you just listen to the headlines, it's an absolutely incredible vision for the future. This speech kicks off with a massive push into high-tech manufacturing with something called Semiconductor Mission 2.0. And then, bam, a huge leap in infrastructure. We're talking plans for 7 brand new high-speed rail corridors connecting major cities all across the country. And it doesn't even stop there. We also hear about new mega-textile parks designed to give a major boost to a core part of the economy. So on the surface, it really feels like this new developed India is just around the corner. It's a super exciting picture, right? No doubt about it. But here's the thing about budgets. They aren't just about big announcements. They're about the cold, hard numbers behind them. So what happens when we peel back that curtain and look past the headlines? What's the real story here? All right, let's start with a question that's probably on a lot of your minds: the middle-class taxpayer. I mean, with consumption on the decline, a lot of folks were really hoping for some kind of relief, something to give the economy a little boost. So, what did they get? Well, the short answer is pretty much nothing. There were zero changes to income tax slabs or rates. But actually, for a lot of people, it was worse than just getting no relief. If you're a stock market investor, your tax burden actually went up because the Security Transaction Tax, or STT, on futures and options trading was raised. And the impact of that was immediate. This quote just says it all. The government was suddenly taking a bigger piece of the pie than the brokers who were making the trades happen. As you can imagine, the market did not like that one bit. It dropped like a rock, 2,800 points, right after the budget speech. Okay, so if the middle class isn't getting a tax break, it makes you wonder, right? Where's the government's money coming from, and where's it all going? Let's break down the basics. So, the single biggest source of cash for the government? It's borrowing. That makes up about a quarter of the whole pie. But here's where it gets really interesting. Look at the tax revenue. You take income tax and GST, add them together, and that's the money coming from individual citizens. It's 36%. That's literally double the 18% that comes from corporate taxes. And this isn't just a one-off thing. It's part of a bigger, longer-term trend. If you look back before 2014, the tax money coming from corporations and from individuals was pretty much neck and neck. But since then, the share from corporations has been going down, while the burden on you, the individual taxpayer, has been going up. So, where does all that money go? Well, after the government gives the states their share, the second biggest expense is this: 20%. A full 1/5 of the entire budget is just to pay the interest on old loans. Think about that for a second. Before a single rupee is spent on schools or hospitals or our defense, a huge chunk of the money is already gone. And this really gets us to the heart of the matter, the two completely different stories this budget is telling. So let's look at some key sectors and compare those big, shiny promises with the actual financial reality. Take education. The announcements sound amazing, right? 5 new university townships, content creator labs, and thousands of schools. That's a really modern idea. And new hostels to help more girls get into STEM fields. I mean, these are really forward-thinking concepts. But here's the reality check. For 60 years, ever since the Kothari Commission, the official recommendation for India has been to spend 6% of its GDP on education. Heck, this government's own new education policy said the same thing. And yet, the actual money set aside in this budget is still less than 3%. We're not even halfway to the target. And you see the exact same pattern in healthcare. Again, the promises sound great. Upgrading institutions, training a whole army of 150,000 new caregivers, and even setting up these regional hubs for medical tourism. But once again, when you look at the numbers, it's the same story. The World Health Organization recommends nations spend 5% of their GDP on health. And India? We're stuck at around 2%. So fantastic ideas on paper, but the funding is just as underwhelming as what we saw in education. Okay, but this next one it's kind of shocking. Urban development. This is the department that handles all the basic city stuff: water, sewage, public transport. You'd think it's important, right? Well, its budget wasn't just underfunded, it was actually cut, a decrease of 11.6% from last year. And this is happening at the same time they're announcing high-speed rail to connect those very same cities. It just doesn't add up. So, what about the big global challenges we're all facing? Things like trade disruptions and, of course, the massive rise of artificial intelligence. How is the budget tackling these? Well, on AI, there was one huge headline grabbing move. A tax holiday all the way to 2047. That's more than 2 decades for any foreign company that sets up data centers here in India. This is a pretty clear attempt to attract that massive infrastructure you need to power the AI revolution. But there is a really important catch here. These giant data centers, they come with some serious hidden costs. They are incredibly hungry for resources, using up enormous amounts of energy and water. And in a country where both of those are already scarce, it raises some pretty serious questions about the environmental impact, pollution and the strain on our national resources. So this all leads to a really fundamental question about this policy. Yeah, it's a huge benefit for the tech companies, no doubt. But what's the long-term cost for the citizens who live nearby, the people who depend on that same water and that same power grid? So when you step back and look at the whole picture across taxes, education, AI, all of it, a really clear repeating pattern starts to emerge from the numbers. It looks like the budget follows this four-step playbook. Step 1, make these huge headline-grabbing announcements. Step 2, introduce a long list of really ambitious new schemes. Step 3, provide financial allocations that are, well, underwhelming. They're just not enough to actually achieve those goals. And step 4, what's the result? You're left with these critical funding gaps for the basics, for the core needs, like primary health, school education, and city infrastructure. So at the end of the day, we're left with two totally different stories. You have the story from the speech. It's full of vision, ambition, and big promises. And then you have the story the numbers tell, a story of gaps, of underfunding, of falling short. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is this: when a budget tells two completely different stories, which one actually matters more?